Habari Africa, welcome to the Business Wisdom series. Open your door, where we bring topical issues and we're adding weight and our perspectives to ensure that Africa Rising becomes a reality. We're far off, but I think we can make traction and headway in terms of scaling up Africa and unleashing economic abundance. In speaking about open your door, and we're talking about leaders, I want to turn our attention towards the whole aspect that we hear being spoken about, Africa Free Continental Trade Area, agriculture, reversing the deficit in terms of imports. It's a big issue, and I do not discount your intellectual capacity. I think the African people are very intelligent, but why is it that we're stuck? Why is it that we still import our own food? Why is it that in as much as we talk about things like Africa Free Continental Trade Area and African Union, we still find ourselves way back in terms of where we want to go? These SDGs, Shamim, that you keep speaking about, 2030 is 9 years away.
Yeah.
Do you think we are on course? Do you think we'll make it? Let's skin this thing.
Wow. The interesting bit, the fact that we started with the aspect of leadership, is we're thinking, even amongst ourselves in our businesses, in our organizations, where we are creating something that is nurturing the world, right? What is our role in that space, and how do we engage to create the abundance that we're looking for? So I earlier on talked about the relationships that we are creating outside of our zones, right? And we know that we can produce food as much as what can feed the world. We have that potential, right? So when we go back to the relationships that we are creating, because when we talk about Africa free trade, we can't stand. I don't think that the idea is for us to stand on our own without partners. We need people to partner with us outside of Africa. We agree? Okay. Yeah. So my point in that is, for example, in terms of the food we produce, that we send outside into the other world. The relationships that we are creating, how are they enhancing that aspect of the business that we are building outside of Africa? I've had stories about people within Africa that export food outside of Africa. And the ordeal, the stories of what really befalls them, where you send your foods outside of Africa, expecting to create a zone where we are trying to match our exports and imports. So we're trying to push the export agenda, right? But the relationships that we create actually are just bringing barriers. That when your things arrive at the port, for example, they are vetting. Where have they come from? Uganda. Okay, so we can say this paper has issues. It's got some insects somewhere, right? And then because you are expecting that this paper has insects somewhere, you're putting it aside, you're holding it back. At the end of the day, you give communication to the exporter that, hey, this has been banned because we suspect. And the thing is, you suspect, right?
It's usually a suspicion.
Yes. So you as the business person, you as the you just feel overwhelmed because you've paid for the freight. You have to meet that expense. You have to pay the farmers who have actually given you that produce.
True.
But you're not earning, right? So the relationships that we create outside of our borders, how do they then affect?
But some of these are really legacy issues. So I know for a fact that you cannot export processed coffee into Germany.
Okay.
I know also in many other African countries, going out to Europe or America, that there's stringent measures in getting that to even go into inside their countries, or let alone their supermarkets. So what do? We are growing our coffee, we harvest it, and the value comes from processing. And I remember President Museveni saying that's 8x value if you just process your coffee a little bit. But Germany wants it raw, because then they process it themselves. Then they bring it back. Switzerland takes your cocoa, then they bring it back. So what relationships? When we are on a table debating or discussing, they don't feel we are equal parties. Remember, we are the colonized.
So and I think that's where this problem starts from, Elton. The issue of just the division of countries by borders within Africa. It's what has, I think, our African leaders have been talking about from the African Union for a very long time. Though I think back in the day when it was the Organization of African Unity, how do we bring Africa together? We've got abundance of land, we've got abundance of resources within Africa, we've got abundance of talent, we've abundance of human capital. Once we start realizing that and start overlooking the borders which were drawn by our colonizers, I think we start going somewhere.
There's an inertia, Terence.
Yes.
I don't know what OAU and Kwame Nkrumah and all these, the Julius Nyereres, they spoke about this. This is in the 60s. We're in 2021. Why is it that whenever we pronounce that we want to do something, we want to open the borders, it never happens? We're in 2021. Can you go to another country? A Ugandan, I know only recently they loosened the requirements, but to go to South Africa, just South Africa, it's very difficult. Now, if you don't allow Shamim to go to South Africa without a visa, when there is ShopRite here, and there is Game here, there is Stanbic here, aren't we propping up xenophobia?
as you started off in the conversation, we are not there yet, but I think in the past few months or the past year, as much as most of the borders the physical borders were closed, but most of the African countries actually started announcing that they are opening up their borders to every African. Apply for your visa when you get there. But I think that for me is a positive note. It's a positive change where our leaders are actually now realizing that, guys, we can actually produce for the whole world from Africa. The regional trading blocks we've got your SADC, your EAC, your ECOWAS, and COMESA. There are about 7 or 8 of them within Africa. That is helping. So the smaller blocks, then saying, guys, by coming together, we are able to have a bigger voice. If we now move a step further and say, as Africa, when we start overlooking these borders, we can even have a bigger voice. Because we are used to managing for scarcity. And now there's this whole issue of abundance. And I think the disruption which has hit us has made us realize that there's an abundance of everything. There's a greater abundance than there is scarcity. When we start managing for abundance, I think we are now moving in the right direction. So within this case, African free trade is coming to fruition. Yes, the implementation is what is important. I think we always talk about we've got the people, the strategy is in place. We've got now to make sure that we execute on and implement this. Do we have the finance and cash to finance this? These are question marks we need to be asking around. Does everyone have the will, as Shamim said? Our leaders, our business people, everyone within the whole system, do we have the willpower to accept that African free trade will benefit us all?
Yeah, and I love what you submitted to say, the people, the movement of people.
Yeah.
So for me, I just also feel that it's not happening fast enough. There's no concerted effort to say this is a lever or a priority that can get us in that direction. We're seated here, diverse countries, but we are Bantu. And other people can say, Africa is one. The language is almost similar. These boundaries, which we still use, were set up by the colonialists. It's fine, we've moved on, we want to keep looking ahead. But why is it difficult for a Ghanaian to come to Uganda and work without a permit or come and set up a business? Why is it difficult for a Kenyan to come into Uganda to start working? Because those obstacles is what is stopping. Now, furthermore, talk about movement of goods.
Yep.
Now, what I will say is, unfortunately, we've got to realize that we might not get there so fast. Right? When we talk about someone from Ghana coming into Uganda to work, why they need a work permit, that's something we have to talk about. We need to table this conversation because I think what's happening is these conversations are held in high places. And then we as the citizens think, that's not my kind of conversation. Yeah. But this conversation and the decisions that are being made thereafter are impacting on my life, your life, and everybody else. What I can say is we can learn lessons from Brexit. Brexit took forever to happen, right?
Yeah, go on.
And many people were vulnerable in the space of you don't know what's going to happen to you because here you are, your understanding was, yes, I can travel everywhere across Europe and work wherever I wanted. But now, because of this other arrangement, this is going to impact on my stay here and perhaps my work and maybe my livelihood that I've built over time. So what I want us to get interested in, or what I would like us to get interested in, is pay attention to what's happening across the world, because we learn lessons.
We get context as well.
Yes. If we get to a place where we say, okay, what's happening to my neighbor affects me, then we pay attention.
True.
So we can learn. If we are trying to build this whole idea of an Africa that is abundant and sustainable, right?
Yep.
We can learn lessons from our partners. You know, if Europe has just gone through, I mean, the UK has just gone through Brexit, how did that impact the economy? How did it impact livelihoods? How did it impact other partners? And then learn lessons from that. And then see how we can collectively put our knowledge and wisdom together. And perhaps our feelings in the space of this is our land, and we want abundance. We want to live our lives, you know, that are fulfilling.
And key lesson that Britain perhaps learned is that it's not good to be an island. It's not good to isolate yourself. Because it had far-reaching economic challenges. So I think we agreed in terms of open up the borders. And I agree with you to say AU with the African passport, etc. Those are considered efforts to open up the borders.
There is still something else, though. The whole idea of our mindset. I always ask myself, why is it easy for someone in America, for example, to move from one state to the other? Someone says, yeah, I used to live in California, so I moved to this place, so I'm now working in this place. And it just happens so easily for them. You see other people who move from, say, the UK, for example, to work in Australia, and they make their lives out there.
Yeah.
What is so hard in us being stuck in, I was born in Kampala, this is where I must work, die, make a family, and then die finally? We need to be open to opportunities. We are talking about the lack of jobs and all these things. Have we actually looked elsewhere? I could be looking for a job where I am, but it's not actually available, or there's no need for my skill here. But there's need for my skill in South Africa. Is our mindset open? Are our young people open to having that diversity of thought? Are our leaders giving, drawing the attention to the fact that we are Africans and we can go everywhere?
There's an interesting trend which is going on around the employment scene, where we've got digital nomads. There are people who, and especially these past few months, there are people who were interviewed, employed online, inducted online, and to date they're like 7 months, 8 months into the job. They've not seen their colleagues. They've not had physical contact. So you put barriers for yourself. Well, once you actually start realizing that, thanks to exponential technologies, you are actually able to transverse to anywhere. You can work from anywhere. Work across borders. And what do you need? You've got the internet, there's growth within the internet and communication sectors. You can actually do projects for Romania or you name, or wherever, while seated in Kampala or seated in Kigali.
And this has been a period as well to help people retool and to say, you know what, you've got exponential technology as wind on your back wherever you can. Like the masterclasses we've been running, you've got someone calling in from the Netherlands or somebody calling in from Zim or South Africa to say you can be anywhere, and you can, and also it helps us as we grow or as we retool to say, the young man out there, you're in Kampala, you're stuck. You're in Soweto, you're stuck, you're in Harare. Don't let that limit you. As long as you've got technology, at least an internet connection and a device, you can start there. And balancing the fact that the government or the leadership, regional leadership, AU, have got a role to play, but what are we doing now? I think that self-reliance is critical to hammer it, to say we're not going to wait for all the situation to be fantastic. The person who waits for a perfect season to plant will never grow anything. So once that's sorted, now let's talk Africa Free Continental Trade Area. The hesitancy people and governments have is that I've been growing my maize for a while, or I've been manufacturing my biscuits. If the Nigerian entities are now able to move goods straight up, they're going to wipe me out. And we're talking import substitution from a Ugandan perspective, and I know a lot of companies or countries are taking that up. Do you think this it's going to be possible, or it's going to face a lot of resistance? Because remember, on the signing of the pact, that there are countries like Nigeria who took a backseat for a while. Why I'm asking this, usually Africa has got amazing pronouncements and policy documents, and we sign all this.
58-page
documents, which a few people read. Do you think this is possible? Because they say by 2030, We can generate 6.7 trillion if Africa starts trading with itself. But is it even possible? Moving goods among the infrastructure, etc. That's something to ponder on.
Currently, it's very expensive to move a simple product. I'm in the apiculture sector. Moving a simple product like honey from Kampala to Cape Town. Someone has visited Kampala, they've enjoyed the honey from West Nile, and they say, okay, I would like to order this honey when I'm back home in Cape Town. For them to get it from Kampala from Uganda to Cape Town, it will cost them plus minus, I'm sure it's even more than $100 to just get a 500 jar that side. How do we break that up? So this is where the African free trade comes into play. Once we realize that, guys, if we start trading with your next door neighbor is going to be empowered, they're going to have a little extra money. So you are also going to buy something else from them, which they've got expertise in. So this is now bringing about issues of specialization. Yeah. What are we good at? What are we good at as Uganda? What are we good at as Tanzania? What are we good at as Tunisia? We know that this is the thing we're good at. What is our key competence?
I don't think that has been discussed, Terence. I think what's been discussed is Africa needs to trade with itself. Yeah. That's important, that's critical. But I don't think they've dived deeper to say, Uganda, what's the strength? That's now the whole area of strategy. To say, what are we good at? What can we quickly leverage and we're good at? Maybe we've got a young population, maybe we've got a skilled population. Let's focus on this, Uganda. Kenya, okay, you're good at this. And then you have a nice mesh. What we don't have, we receive. What they don't have, we give, and that trade happens. Those mechanisms, I'm saying the document has been done, but the mechanisms at a country level. Uganda has Bubu, Buy Uganda, Build Uganda, and other countries have got their localized. And remember, competitiveness is different.
Yeah.
In the region alone is EAC, Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania. They bring different strengths to the table. Yeah. But have we spoken enough to say this is how we're going to integrate?
So could we then say that the hesitancy also comes back to us? It draws back to us as a
and the fact that when I'm not happy with you, I'll never tell you. I'll keep it in my heart.
Yeah, and that's really, really wrong, because I think that the challenges in that is we are all not at the same level, right? And sometimes it's really tough when you are negotiating terms with someone of which you're not at the same level.
Same level,
in terms of economy, the size of the economy, the competitiveness, yes, then you also find that the quality of what we produce is an issue. And I think that when we go further to talk deeper into how we enable the Africa-Continental free trade area happening, we have to focus on how we improve what we produce. Because the truth is, if I am scared that what comes out of a certain country might not be what I actually paid for, then I might not engage you, right? We've seen a lot of this in terms of the replicas that are happening with, someone tells you I'm selling this, it gets to your doorstep and you're thinking, that's not what I bought, right? So if we are tapping into technology and how we're going to use that to be a link for us in terms of how we engage across Africa, we've got to think about improving the quality, and that starts from educating the people who are into the production, right? So how are we sharing knowledge? How are we innovating around what we're actually producing? What is the need? So the human centricity of how we do work. So when I produce this, how will this family feel when they receive this? When they use it, how will they use it? What will be their experience?
So I know there's a quality standard. In Uganda, they have the Bureau of Standards. Zim might have the Standards Association, and every country has. I wonder whether at an African level, that standard has been established to say, you are moving your milk across, you're moving your butter. Is it at a certain level? Yeah. So for me, I love the fact that that's a powerful point in terms of the free trade. But in terms of the mechanisms to get the execution running is where I usually find a challenge.
You guys seem to have spoken about mechanisms, standards, all technical, which is fine. But Shamim, going back to the human part of it, it seems we've got trust issues around Africa.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like countries.
Exactly, it's a trust. It's issues around trust. If we are saying we are doing this and you don't want to take our word for it, maybe we've not communicated well. So I think we've got communication issues which are complex as human beings for starters, and let alone country to country, company to company. So it's understanding that you are dealing with a human being. You're not dealing with a country. There are human beings within a country. You know, there are human beings within within business, within offices, companies. Understand the human beings you're dealing with, and don't look at it as I am trading with this competitor company or whatnot. This is my customer. That customer has got a name, has got a personality. Once you then say, let me dumb myself down, let me understand this person as a human being, let me understand the people of this country as human beings, then I guess this is where the anthropology comes into play, where you say there are culture issues you need to understand. Also, you mentioned things of milk. Maybe milk, Tanzanians like their milk in a particular way, and that will affect, then they are going to say, this milk is of a poor quality, yet in Uganda it's perfect.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
So it's those things which we now don't go into Africa saying, I'm going to Africa with one product which will fit all people.
So we need to invest in data. Really, I think it's very important that we.
I think the
we have
SDGs talk
data.
about that as well, to say, I don't think we're collecting enough data to be able to track, which comes back to that whole collective intelligence. How do we communicate among ourselves? Yeah. So, so skill set. So Uganda might have rotten apples or rotten pineapples, and we need to add value to them and maybe dry them. But do we have the skill set to be able to produce what we need to be able to export quality within our African countries? Because remember, we're starting from a negative point of view, that people don't even trust our quality. Or among ourselves, you would buy a European labeled bag rather than going and buying one in Kampala. Why won't you trust that I can produce a healthy quality leather bag?
I think that we need to be pay a lot of attention to standards, and the bureaucracy or the institutions we put in place to actually manage that. Because I think when we have a conversation about standards and bureaucracy, we also engage on issues to do with corruption, guys.
Yep.
We know that there are people who will pay for their product to actually pass a particular standard. So where do I get the satisfaction that when I support Buy Uganda, Build Uganda, I'm actually paying for a price for the quality that I'm looking for? And so that means that it also poses a question to us collectively, but also back to our leaders, because you do this, so we expect you to try it.
I guess it's that whole issue again, open your door, and also creating mechanisms or a platform using technology to make sure that it's transparent. You've been dealing in the apiculture value chain, the whole issue of traceability. Where is this thing coming from and where is it going? But then who is leading this charge of Africa Free Continental? Is it the politicians? Is it the business people? Are we leveraging the chambers of commerce along ourselves? Like, to get started, is Uganda National Chamber of Commerce talking to South African Chamber of Commerce, to the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, Zambia, all these? Have we put enough mechanisms, back again to mechanisms, a framework in place to make sure that this ideal we seek? Because Africa has been about ideals. Nyerere spoke and he passed on, he's gone, God bless his soul. In Ghana, our Kwame Nkrumah, he spoke. Our president, Robert Mugabe, he spoke. But we're still here, and some of the things that were pronounced back in OAU have still not been established. And I don't want to come to 2030. Because we will be now in a place where our children will start blaming us. Where were you, Dad, when all this was happening? Couldn't you have done something? So I want to move away from rhetoric to say, oh, Africa Free Continental Trade Area, we're going to generate 6.7 trillion. SDGs, they're going to happen. And remember, back in the day, free education by the year 2000. All these things have not happened. Yep. What's stopping this from happening? Is it the tilt of power? And the tilt of trade that's happening? And just to add in another thing there, President Nana Akufo-Addo, when he was talking to the Swiss president, or they call her prime minister? Yes. President. And he was saying, no cocoa is going to leave Ghanaian borders raw form. You bring us the money, you bring us the skill set, and we make chocolates here and we export. Now, that's no longer Switzerland's interest. They've got the capacity out there and they need just the raw cocoa. So even as we talk about distributing and trading among ourselves, this excess export that goes out, they don't want it processed. Either they don't trust you, either they do not want it because they make their money from adding value.
Yep.
But then does that not take us back to the earlier conversation we had about the kind of relationships that we build? We perhaps need to revisit that. The negotiations around how we collaborate with our partners, because it can't always be this thing. We've got to take at a certain point, or we've got to strike a balance, right? And I believe that a balance could be quite hard. But I think that we need to draw our attention back onto the things that matter most, and that's our people. Our people need to be looked after. Our people are passionate about Africa. Our people are struggling, and they want to see a different Africa. And we just can't keep meeting in boardrooms, have conversations, go travel here and there, talk about things and do nothing. At least let's try. Let's try and show our people that we are doing something, but also not just showing, let's involve our people.
Involve our people.
So we can listen to all these voices. There are lots of unheard voices. Of farmers, for example, down in the village. Do you understand the challenges that they are facing?
Farmer is having.
Absolutely. So that when you are making your decisions, their input is actually impacting, it's influencing the decisions that you're making from a perspective of knowledge.
And then there's also an aspect of shared value. I think when we all have the same shared value and say this is what we stand to benefit, and not us as this country, us, you as that company. The moment we realize that and say shared value is what will get us there, then we start putting implementation measures which will take us through this shared big, hairy, audacious goal we've got. So I think that and communication down the line, downstream, is where we've got a constraint. How do we improve our communication from policies to strategies all the way down to implementation and execution? As we are saying, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, it's an agreement, it's there, people have now rallied behind it. Are we confident that
We
as Africans,
our leaders went, debated in the boardrooms, and they said, I think this is what's good for us. I don't think there was a bottoms-up approach to say, Mr. MP, this is what we are, these are our aspirations, this is what we want. At a district level, and it goes up to the government level. That aspect of reaching out, not on election seasons, and making it regular and collecting data will take our countries further more than anything else.
And us, Elton, as the citizens, we should be asking ourselves, how many times have we gone to our LC1, our member of parliament?
Healthy what?
our member of parliament, our councillor, and said, hi, my name is Elton. Hi, my name is Terence. My name is Shamim. I stay at this place. I just wanted to find out, what are we doing in terms of security in this area? What are we doing in terms of development, in terms of business advancement?
I will disagree.
Okay.
Why do I have to do that?
All right.
Because I, as a citizen, right, I have a civic responsibility.
Yes.
Say, and I could say, for example, in my local council, it could be neighborhood watch. So I know who my neighbor is. So if I notice a face I notice a car that I've never seen, I'm much more cautious about my personal security and the security of my neighbors. But I believe, and I could be wrong, but hey, I believe that our leaders should put systems that enable us to actually be aware. If we talk about LCs are very powerful. Local councils are very powerful because they will know who resides in their area, right? And so that's strengthening security within the location we're in. But also, they should be helped in the process. So given tools to enable them to actually do that.
Okay.
I tell you, you know how the SDGs are so much on my heart. And I keep saying, if we are global partners, we need to pay a lot more attention to these SDGs and what each person's input is. I expect my local council to be aware of SDGs, irrespective of whether they went to school or not, because the issue is not about getting a formal education. The issue is about being informed about what's happening on the global agenda.
Creating decent work within the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Have we challenged our local councillors to say, guys, how can we improve business within this place? We've got shopping centers. Is there space for us to build a mall, to build a shopping center? We are creating jobs for people within the neighborhood. Our children, our grandchildren will come after that. I think these are things which us as the citizens are not challenging our authorities.
I think the strategy has not as well trickled down to the LC to say Uganda has NDP3, this is what we're hoping to say. These are the signals you look out for in the environment. I want to hold that thought and take a quick break. And when we come back, we continue with the Business Wisdom series.